What is going on, guys? We are back playing some more Surviving with ActuallyAdditions. Today, guys, we are going to be going over the drill and the many different augmentations that are offered to make some sweet upgrades to it and bring it from a pretty viable mid-game tool into a slightly overpowered and very useful late-game tool. So I've had the drill for quite some time now, but I've never really talked about it, even though it's one of the most useful things that ActuallyAdditions offers. So today we're going to go over making the drill and how it actually really isn't that expensive, a couple of the different upgrades and my favorite upgrade setup, and then how I would go about charging it early. So yes, I am going to make another drill. I know it's a little bit of a waste, but I mean, we're nearing the end of the series right now, which is why we're kind of covering miscellaneous things. So I don't really need all these resources that I've got. So the first thing that we're going to make again is the drill, which requires 3 diamantine crystals. So if you're kind of short on diamonds and you'd be making a pick anyway, you're going to be using the same amount to make this, and you're going to get way more bang for your buck. The part that gets expensive about this is going to be all the Inori crystals you need. So we're going to need a total of 4 Inori crystal blocks, and then the rest is just kind of miscellaneous stuff. So if we come over, if you're looking for the recipe, it's always going to be the diamond colored one. If you click on any of the others, you're just going to have to go back to that since they're just dyed versions. And first thing first, we're going to make the drill core, and then we can go back and make the entire drill. So it holds 250,000 crystal flux. Now, yours will not start charging when you put it in your hand. The only reason mine is doing that is because of this player interface setup that I set up a couple episodes ago. But there are other ways to charge it since that's really expensive, and you're probably not going to have that early on. So you've got the drill now, and it's actually pretty solid on its own. It works like both a pick and a shovel, so it can get rid of things pretty fast. And I guess this one's a little buggy because it's charging, but it can get rid of things pretty fast. But by adding some upgrades, we can make it even more effective. So if we look down here at the very bottom on the right side of the screen, you'll see all the different augmentations. So we've got speed augmentations, 3 of those, a silk touch augmentation, a fortune 1 and fortune 2 augmentation, but that actually gives fortune 3, and then a drill mining augment. There's 2 of them. Those are going to increase the size that you're mining, and then finally a drill block placing augment. So we're going to be making a couple different ones today, but I'll cover all of them. So the first one we're going to make is going to be all 3 of the mining speed augments, because these are probably the simplest ones to go over, and it looks like we should sleep soon. But to make these, the first ones at least, it's not super expensive. It's going to require some Inori crystals, some sugar. First one needs Redstonia crystal in the center. The next one is going to need, and it looks like I forgot to grab it, it is going to need a cake. So that is kind of weird, a little bit annoying maybe. It was a slight pain in the butt to have to go out and get everything to make a cake, since I don't really see why it requires that. But yeah, so it's going to use sugar again, and then a cake in the center. That's Augment 2. And then finally, Augment 3 is going to be a little bit more expensive. So that is going to be the one that requires the empowered Inori crystal, diamantine crystal, and some more sugar. So this one requires a fair bit of empowered blocks, but again, it'll definitely be worth it. So now we've got all 3 of these upgrades. The next one that we're going to go over can be the Silk Touch upgrade, which is very expensive. The recipe for this is 4 empowered emeraldic crystals, 4 diamantine crystals, and then an advanced coil. So this is essentially going to act like a Silk Touch enchant. Nothing super special about it to really explain. Now, something that's constant with all of these upgrades or augments is that they are all going to increase the cost. There is, a different amount per one. Silk Touch makes it pretty expensive. The speed ones do upgrade the cost, but they aren't going to be much more expensive. Same with pretty much all the augments are going to upgrade the cost of every time you mine in terms of energy, but of course you are getting something back for it, so it's not too bad of a trade-off. So the next upgrade that we're going to go over will be the fortune ones, and I'm not actually going to make these right now just because we have a limited number of slots. You only have 5 slots for upgrades, and so I'm making the ones right now that I'm going to be using for my 5 upgrades, but we're also using Silk Touch, so that don't really work with fortune. But these are going to act just like regular fortune at an increased cost, and by adding the second upgrade, it gives you fortune 3. So luckily you don't have to add 3 upgrade slots to get all the way to it. That does make it a little bit more viable, but I still do think that Silk Touch is probably your best bet. So those 2 again are pretty solid choices, but I think Silk Touch is better. The next ones that we are going to make are going to be the drill mining augment, which are going to increase the area you're mining by the number shown. So 1 is going to increase it by 3, and the other is going to increase it by 5. So you can mine a pretty big area once you add both of these in there. So these require the diamantine crystals and Inori crystals. So the first upgrade, not super expensive. Second one, again, diamantine and then empowered Inori crystals. And then instead of a basic coil, it's an advanced coil. So throw these in there, get the first one, get the second one, and there we go. Now for the last upgrade that you could possibly have, that is the drill block placing augment. This one's a little bit weird. It pretty much makes it so that your drill can be used to place blocks even while you have it out. And it works by right-clicking the upgrade in a hotbar slot and then putting it in, and then it allows you to place blocks from that hotbar slot. So it's a little bit weird, but if we look here, it doesn't really say much about it over here. It just says placement upgrade. After you right-click it in any slot of your hotbar, will make the drill able to place a block from that slot by right-clicking. So I don't find it super useful at all, especially not if you're using this just for mining. Maybe if you're trying to place stuff down and walk over lava or do some building, it might be useful, but I don't find it super useful outside of that. Now, the last thing that we are going to make is going to be the Energizer, which is for charging. Very early on, there are better ways to charge, but it just requires 4 Restonia, 2 advanced coils, and an iron casing. So we'll place that down right over here. And if you did need to charge it, you just come in, you click the drill in there, and it'll get charged by whatever power's in here. We'll just add an advanced energy laser relay there. And there we go. And if this was actually hooked up to something, let's hook it up to this, it would start getting power. So a little annoying. I don't actually want these hooked up just because I don't really need to use it right now. But there we go. Okay, so that's what you'd use to charge it early on. It's relatively fast, doesn't take too long, so it's not really that bad, but it is really nice once you get the player interface. So to add upgrades to these, all you have to do is have it out and then shift right click, and you have 5 upgrade slots. Now, it is a little bit weird because usually you can add pretty much any upgrades you want to something and, fill it out. Obviously, you can't have Silk Touch and Fortune, but for the most part, you can get as many upgrades that are able to work with each other. But in this case, you're forced to choose, because to have an upgrade working, you need to have the previous levels also included. So by adding in a drill speed augment 2, this will not function if I don't have a speed augment 1. So you need to have all previous levels. So to have a speed augment 3, yeah, that's really fast. If we come out here and start going through, it's really fast, but I'm kind of destroying my area as I do this. But you need to have all of them in there. If we were to take both of these out, you can see it does not do that same speed, even though we've got the 3rd level in there. So that pretty much requires you to have a pretty heavy investment, which is why I actually don't do 3. I would do speed augment 1 and 2, then the 2 mining augments, and then the Silk Touch. I think that's kind of ideal. So I'm trying to think of a good place to show an example of this. Where's an area that I can just kind of tear through right now? Let's go, how about right over here, since we won't really have to see this, but if we come over, you can see that we're kind of just going through this. It doesn't work with sand, unfortunately, really well, but oh my gosh. See, this is why it's kind of buggy trying to charge right now, is if you look at it, this is trying to get power, I assume, and it's resetting it constantly. This is why the player interface can get kind of buggy. But yeah, so a couple things to keep in mind, since I don't really need to keep ripping through this wall right here. A couple things that are important to note is that adding certain upgrades will slow stuff down. So adding the upgrades for the mining area are going to slow it down in general. So if you don't have any speed upgrades in there, it's going to go very, very slow, which is why I think it's important to add speed upgrades in there, at least 1, if you're going to be adding in even just the first level of the mining area upgrade. So they do have some interesting interactions with each other. Now, doing even just mining 1 single layer like this is going to cost a lot of power. I would not advise you to set this up early on, but it does have an interesting way of bringing it into kind of a later game tool, upgrading speed and everything, instead of having to like enchant it or with Draconic Evolution do the weird upgrades. It's just kind of an interesting way that you can do it, and it's nice because if you're doing something else, if I was trying to mine, other stuff or do building, I could take one of those out, so now it's faster. If I don't want Silk Touch, I could take it out. It's nice that you can just kind of mix and match. But I think that's really going to be it for today, guys. Not anything too special to cover in this video. I apologize if it seems a little bit rushed or anything, but there are 2 reasons for that, really. So first off, I just recently moved back into college. It was the first week of classes this week, so I was just trying to kind of get everything under control with that. And on top of that, we're also nearing the end of this series. It was a lot shorter than I thought it would be, mainly just because a lot of these episodes cover a lot of blocks together. You know, when you're setting up the farm and all this, this covers a lot of blocks that are in ActuallyAdditions. And there are just kind of a lot of miscellaneous ones that don't need explanations. You don't need an explanation on the item repairer. You don't need one on the auto breaker. We've used things similar to these, but you don't need a specific explanation on many of these things. And outside of that, there aren't a ton of blocks in here. Obviously, there are things like, rings of strength and stuff, but these are all miscellaneous things we can still cover if you guys want, but they're not, technological blocks that people really need to learn about, which is what I'd like to cover. So I can do a couple more episodes on miscellaneous things. It's really up to you guys. I don't mind either way. I have another mod in mind if we want to start with that soon. But I just want to let you guys know kind of why we're covering sort of bland stuff now, not super exciting things. It also seems the interest in this series is dying off a little bit, which always tends to happen near the end of it. So, I'll keep you guys posted on what we're going to be doing. But thank you for watching the episode today, guys. Again, I apologize if it was a little bland and boring. But, I've been kind of running dry recently with, school and everything. So hopefully we will be back into the swing of things with a new series starting up soon. And I will talk to you guys later.